Hello everybody, thank you for joining me on the January 1st Plant 3D virtual meetup of 2020 calendar year. I'll just give people a minute or so as we have people come in as we a little bit late. Thank you for those who are here a bit early, it's great to see and I appreciate you coming along. While we're waiting, feel free to post any questions you might have into the questions panel. If you don't know where that is, it's in your GoToMeeting panel. And if you've got just any general comments or chat, that can go in the chat panel as well. And you should be seeing, if I double check, you should be seeing the presentation. And we'll be starting in, well, we'll start about now. We don't want to reward too many people for being too late. So thank you for those who are there. I will, you should be seeing the presentation. I was going to actually, I don't know if you can see me, I'm trying this year to try and show the webcam in alignment with what other people are doing in these virtual meetups. So hopefully it's not too intrusive. Trying to keep an eye on what's going on by myself today. I haven't got any colleagues with me and I've only got the one screen, so it's a bit hard to monitor what's going on. But either way, this is the first one for 2020 and we've got a lot to get through for this year and I will get started. So there's a couple of names I don't recognize. So as I go through the presentation, I will pause on the introductory bits, being a new year, but I won't labor it too much. So you may be able to speak. I'm not sure if I've unmuted everybody. If you can't, that's fine. If you want to ask a question verbally, raise your hand. There's a function for that and we can get to it. Otherwise, at any stage, throw a question into the quick Q&A panel and we can certainly answer that when we get to it. I can do that as we go through. Sorry, I'm just managing windows here. This webinar is being recorded. They're always recorded. Don't let that freak you out at all. That is simply so that once it's finished, it can be added to the website. So people who aren't available at this time of day, with meetings or project dues, then they can catch up on it at a later date. The whole intention of these is for engagement though. So if you've got questions, please feel free to put them into the chat Q&A bit. My name is David Manning. I'm a designated support specialist based in Sydney, Australia. Well, as most of our specialists, I come from the industry. I've been over 12 years in piping design specifically, but also worked in the steam plant generation design factory in Brisbane as well. I support a number of products, predominantly plant and 3D, including the P&ID functions. I'll skip through the rest of the gents who are delivering this around the world. Today's agenda is we go through the overview as always, stopping as normal on the safe harbor statement, and then we go through the news. There's a couple of updates here we want to touch on, some of which we've seen before, but it's all important nonetheless. And then our major topic for today is where to get training. We're seeing a lot of people ask us questions where to get training, and so we're going to touch on some of that today to help people kick off the new year. Maybe you've got a New Year's resolution to get upgrade some skills, maybe refresh your knowledge of Plant 3D, maybe thinking about moving to a new version. And then, of course, as always, we go to the follow-up questions from last month. We have none, so we can skip over that bit there. And we will then move into the open discussion and Q&A and live demos. That session is only going to be very interesting if you put some questions in there, so please do that while we're going through today. For those who haven't been here before, these meetups are intended to be a routine engagement with the Autodesk people and the plant design community. We do it in 3 regions, so we've got one in Europe, we've got one in APAC, this one of course, and we also do one in America, and it is to provide you with people, local contacts and context around your local area, as well as a friendly time zone. Intended to be a casual engagement, we do go through news and tips and tricks and topics, things that we're finding each month that we want to share with you, and as we plan it out for the year. But the real intention of this is to get questions from you to see what problems you're having and see if we can answer them in the call. And if we can't answer them during the call, we'll always get back to you afterwards with our knowledge and our experience as best as possible. And we try to follow up on those in the following month so that everybody else can learn from the experience. And that's why we're all here, is the whole purpose is to learn. Our safe harbor statement is the same as it was last year, and this generally means we may end up talking about the future of the product, and as often is the case, I guarantee it today because there's at least one slide on the future of the product. But what we're telling you is to the best of our knowledge today, and that may change in the future. We don't have any crystal balls, and we're certainly not in the business department. We're in the tech support department. We are providing you with information that we have, and that's all we can do, because we will give you trust and honest appraisal of the situation. However, when you're making business decisions, we need you to validate that with Autodesk with official word, so that and statements, so that that can be trusted and relied on as a purchasing or business decision for legal reasons. So, as I said, we'll tell you what we believe or we understand to be the situation today, and it'll be as honest and truthful as possible, but there's always things that change, and we would hate for you to be in an uncomfortable situation as a result of taking something that may change in the future. So, plant news. Now, so one of the big news is the Plant Rogue beta. And if you haven't heard of this before, this has been flashing around LinkedIn and the social communities since about August last year, I think. And the big news is it was originally scheduled to time out, so the licensing on the beta software would end on the 20th of January, if I remember correctly, and that is no longer going to happen. We have had that extended to the 18th of March, which should run it nicely into somewhere around about the release of the 2021 products. So if you're using the beta for projects as a testing ground, you decide you want to go live, then you can test right up until very, very near to when the 2021 products will be available, and you can move on. I don't believe the betas are allowed to be used for production purposes, but that would be in the fine print when you accept that. So just check that for yourselves. I'm going to minimize that little panel there for a second and go back. Oh yes, of course, and the reminder there, I knew I was forgetting to read something, was if you can't find this in the beta council or the feedback group, it's because AutoCAD is now Plant 3D is now part of one AutoCAD, which is the big overriding package under subscription. So we're also looking to move our forum, which was standalone for Plant 3D, into a subset of threads or groups, excuse me, threads or groups within the AutoCAD Customer Council. So the beta is not in the Plant 3D forum, it's in the AutoCAD forum, and you'll need to go there. If you're having any issues, that email address there goes to the Plant team that are working with the beta, and they will help you get to where you need to go. You may need to be invited to the beta to be able to, in fact, I guarantee it, you need to be invited to the beta to be able to get access to it. If you were on the Plant Customer Council before, and you are also on the AutoCAD Customer Council, you may see it in the AutoCAD Customer Council as well. And if you download this presentation, looks like the AutoCAD Customer Council there is a hyperlink, so you should be able to access that from the PDF that we provide. The other thing we wanted to talk about is the Plant development team working on the beta have been communicating quite vigorously is the right word, with customers who are doing testing, finding issues and fixing them and providing feedback on the forum, and that is great and wonderful to see. I get a lot of those emails and quite enjoy reading through them when I can. But it's really interesting to know that you are actually talking directly to the developers, one of the big benefits of being on the betas. And what they're asking is if you haven't done it, or if you have done a project port from doing a backup and then uploading to docs, we'd love to hear from you, love to hear about the experience, what worked for you or what didn't, because that's one of the areas of focus right now. And if you've done that, that is great. If you haven't done it, try one of your existing projects, create a backup of it, and then try uploading that to docs as a test. We'd be interested to know how that went, because the more times, well, let me put it this way, the more often we can find problems now, the more chances we get to be able to fix those in the full release, which is coming very, very soon. All right, so if you haven't done that and you are in the beta, please have a go at it, because then you get your test to make sure it works well for you. And I personally think from my test, you'll find it very easy and very convenient to do. But in the same instance, if you do find problems, it's absolutely important that you jump into those forums and let the developers know, because then they can look into it and hopefully get a fix. All right, so the whole point of being in the beta is to provide feedback. So let's do that when we can. So yeah, that project backup is the hot topic at the moment, if you could do that if you can. On a similar note, we have been releasing, and we're getting a bit of a catalog now on YouTube, a Plant 3D with the Experts vlog, or video log. We're now up to 8, I think, and the January one is due to come out very soon, which will be on the PNIDs. So if you're fairly new to Plant 3D, or you've got other colleagues that you are fairly new, or even management that want to have a general understanding how things work, share this this video series with them, and the start there gives you a very good overview. The first one in video is just an introduction to the series. The second one is a great video from Bernd, who is one of our experts in the technical support team. He has done a wonderful general overview of Plant 3D and what's available. And I'll just note there, the topic of today is where to get help in this meetup. It is also the third video you can see there in the list, is where to get help. And if I'm not mistaken, that might have been produced by Quentin, also one of our technical experts you may have received emails from. I could be wrong with that. Well, I need to find out. If somebody jumps in there and finds out I'm wrong, feel free to let me know. And of course, the other way to look up to get assistance is to join the virtual community meetups. For those of you in this meeting, that is wonderful, and I love to see people in here in person. Really gives me a feeling of confidence that I'm actually talking to people, and I love to get any conversations going when we get to that point. We are releasing, we do have the calendar right out to the end of the year, and even January next year. We know it's always the second Tuesday of the month, always at 2 p.m. Sydney time, whether it's daylight savings or standard, whatever the current is for that particular month. But for you to register, we have 3 in advance always. January is in there right now, and after today, when the US time zones session finishes at some point there, I'm sure that will tick over, and we'll have February, March, and April in there, so you can register for all 3 fairly easily. Big advantage of registering is, of course, that you can get updates or changes or anything's wrong. Also lets us know how to expect people, and you should hopefully get reminders and things in your email coming through. If you registered, you should have received an email about an hour before this one. If you didn't, how about you let me know somewhere, either in an email or in the chat, and we can talk about that afterwards. Now, on that topic, we did do a great meetup in Las Vegas at Autodesk University last year in November. It was absolutely spectacular to be able to meet people in person rather than on a phone call or in a meeting. And I really enjoyed going around and talking to people when we finished the recording. However, if you missed that or you couldn't be in there, and you probably weren't, because I did realize during that call that everybody in the room bar one person had never heard of the virtual community meetup before that day. So that was very interesting in itself, but really, really interesting for most people, and everybody here will be Misha Belilovsky did the presentation on Plant 3D's past, current, and future. And that is going to be something everyone's been interested in. We're often getting questions about it, and that is still the best place to go for now. And probably will be for some time, because it was really clear in what he was saying. So if you're interested in that, you can grab that from the not from the AU site, sorry, from the Customer Success Learning Hub. And I've also put it into the Resource Center for the virtual meetups, a hyperlink there for the November session. So if you haven't seen that, I strongly recommend you go watch that, at the very least for Misha's presentation. We have also launched at Autodesk University last year the Autodesk Group Network. So anywhere in the world, if you're working with any of Autodesk products, we are now sponsoring them through a group network page. That's that hyperlink you can see there. Again, if you download the PDF, there's a hyperlink, you can click on it, and you can find groups in your area or online that have similar interests to you. Now, this is a fairly new thing. So it was only launched officially in November last year, although I've been involved with it since about mid-year last year when we started looking into it. And the basic idea is it's really focused currently around in-person groups, but there is an online section too. And you can jump in there and you can see the map on the left side there. You can find groups in your region if you want to do attend something locally in person and work with community groups, other experts, other specialists that have an interest and a passion for the products and the design styles that you do as well. In the picture there, you can see we've got the Plant 3D virtual community meetup as the online group as the second one, and a LinkedIn group as well, which is starting to be added. There's the AutoCAD Plant 3D group. I think that's an invitation only, or you've got to be accepted to join that one. But we post in there, I post in there occasionally. I know the other specialists have done in the past, and another good group to be involved in if you're generally interested in keeping track of what's going on in Plant 3D. But that's another way you can find this group is through the online section there as well. Right, to the main topic of the day, and I'm just checking the questions there. I'm not seeing any questions. So while we're going through here, I would be interested to know, and feel free to put it into the chat all the questions, whether you've done training recently. And when I say recently, I guess I mean in the last 12 months or longer. If you can put the last time you've done any formal training, whether it's online, in a course of some sort, rather than just random YouTube videos, into the chat or to the questions, that would be really awesome. I'd be very interested to see what's going on there. But if you haven't had training in a long time and you're interested to get training, they've put together a collage of information here for you. And when we think about this, there's two things we tend to look at. What does training look like, and where do we get that? Most people often forget about the first one. They just ask for training, but there's so many different ways to get training these days, as well as so many different sources. So it's important to understand exactly what you're looking for, as well as where do I get it? So let's start with something very simple. When we look at training courses, we talk about online, we're looking through things. Everybody has their own terminology, and everybody has their oning way of breaking training courses down if they've written themselves. What is fairly common, at least in the US, is the terminology essentials, and I've seen this quite a lot, and advanced being the two separate courses. And depending on what you're looking at, you may interpret it differently. So what we have found is generally the essentials is targeted at P&ID and pipe designers, how to use the product. So it's the actual on the tools drafting side for someone who's going to use the product on a regular basis. So it's your designers, it's your drafters, it's the people who are actually doing the work, where the advanced side is the people who are administering. So these people doing specs and catalogs and all that sort of stuff. You're setting up the systems and the settings, and they don't necessarily use the product, I guess is the point. Typically they will have, you kind of have to be able to understand it, do it right, but not necessarily the case. So there's the two courses, and more often than not, the essentials is a precursor to advanced, but not always. Online training. So when we talk about training, we typically look at three different ways to do things. So you've got digital content. So this is the online training. This is the recordings, the videos, YouTubes, all these sort of things. This meeting, once it's recorded and online, and you can go to that, you can record, you can watch it at any stage. It's self-paced. They're often relatively structured in a sequence, but you can quite often chop and change and move around and get what you need on an as-needs basis. It's a online digital on-demand content. The next one I would look at typically is show me or delivered content. This is a delivered content. If you're attending this webinar, it is being delivered to you. I'm showing you how to find online training. And then the next level, of course, is things like you go to a training center or they come to you and you have in-person training or consulting or working with the Autodesk partners to do that sort of face-to-face, highly customized content. With regards to online, we strongly recommend a few of these things. Of course, there's numerous others, but when we're talking about things that we know personally to be quite reliable and quite good content, LinkedIn Learning, which used to be lynda.com or may still be, depending how you look at that, I think it was acquired, is a great resource for many, many tools. I don't believe it's free, but you can often get in fairly easily. Not entirely sure on that. It's certainly free to us where we work with them quite closely. So that's a great content there, and is excellent to go through. Maybe a bit on the basic side. I'm not sure about the advanced stuff. Global e-training is a wonderful platform in its very basic form where you can log in there and do some great training. And it has some really, really advanced functions if your organization really wants to invest in it. And I would strongly recommend having a look at that. I'm sure there's other platforms out there doing similar things. That's just the one that I have had contact with through customers that I work with. CAD learning is also great, and we do access that as well. Again, simple content, great chapters, great ways to learn, very logical progress as you work your way through. And Eagle Point, or previously the Pinnacle series, not something I'm very familiar with. That, in fact, was something I think is more America-based, but came up through the specialist space in the States. But again, it's the same concept, and another wonderful platform, I'm told, and I do recommend that. The benefit of these is they've got some great content. Disadvantage is because they're so well structured and built, they do tend to lag behind. So I think a number of these do have 2020, but maybe not. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the platforms. When we start talking about face-to-face or classroom training, nearly always in person, not always, we recommend using authorized Autodesk training providers. There's not, I wouldn't suggest any payback to us, nothing around that other than it is important to me and my colleagues that you get the training that you expect and the quality of training that you expect. So these providers have all been through certification, and they are vetted, or however the actual process details that we recommend them as our authorized vendors, your partners. And these people are really well versed in the AutoCAD way or Autodesk ways, and we work with them relatively closely to be able to continue providing high quality services. Now, most of these people traditionally do it in classroom, in person. They may come to you or you go to them, but we're starting to see this new evolution where the remote and the web-based stuff is coming through as well. So maybe I'll do a remote webinar like we're doing here. I believe GoTo does special functions for training rooms to make things a bit easier. And you can have people from multiple regions maybe coming in, or even remote, to benefit from that. More often than not, they can be customized to suit you, whether that's just cutting out certain sections and adding in others, or completely customized content would be a discussion between you and the provider, of course. And if you are taking things out, we would suggest that make sure you put things back in to get your value out of it, because you are paying for their time and their services. You can also use consulting services, either through Autodesk or through other processes, to do highly customized deliveries as well. And we've had many customers do that ourselves. Oop, wrong way. Once you're finished with that, or even beforehand, you may be interested in looking into training manuals and books. A lot of people still like to read a book. I still read my fiction books on paper, not on a Kindle or the computer. It just doesn't suit me. I much prefer the feel of paper, find it works better, and sometimes that can help you learn a lot better too. So if you're looking for a publisher, the key point of this slide here is Autodesk Authorized Publisher Program. This is about recognizing authors and publishers that have a certain level of quality about their work and are recognized by Autodesk as being authorized to publish content. If they don't have this branding, then of course there potentially is a concern that they may not be as high quality or as highly accurate as the people in this program. I'm not saying that they are not as good as every possibility they are, but the guarantee is not there. Or the reliability, maybe a better way to put it. Just to point out, I don't know if you noticed, these all have hyperlinks. So if you get the presentation, you can hyperlink across to them. Of course, you should Google them at any particular time, and I'm sure they come to the top pretty quickly to get to these pages where you can find things. As an example here, the Ascent Publishing team have some wonderful books. Again, I haven't personally gone through these, but my colleagues in the States have, and they do some great stuff with these books. Very well laid out, very consistent. The example here is Introduction to Plant Design 2019, and is currently being used in the US amongst a number of training organizations that you can see listed there on the left-hand side. So definitely worth looking into. I didn't think there was a 2021 on their website at this point, but again, these things change on a regular basis, so it's always worth checking yourself. Continuing for the manuals and books, you can always jump on Amazon.com and there'll be a plethora of materials out there. Same with generally searching for manuals. There's so much you can get online these days. It is often hard to trust, which is why we talk about the authorized publisher programs. But that said, they are out there, and some of them might be more up your line of work, or maybe simply something you would prefer to have. Maybe you know the publisher and you trust them, and that would be your call. I'm not going to suggest either way. On this particular page there, I drew your attention to the bottom of the white book on the front. You can see a little Autodesk label there on the bottom left corner of the front page. That's the symbol that they are authorized, and Autodesk supports the content they're publishing. In fact, I recognize that model as being the sample model. So yeah, other good places to go, and indeed many, many more if you choose to look, I'm sure. Training articles and technical references. This is where we start getting into the more nitty-gritty of it. So we end up with lots of little articles and bits and pieces all over the place. And I'm going to come back to that in a bit, I'm sure. But obviously the place we recommend going first is Autodesk Knowledge Network. You can search by product and look through all the various bits and pieces. We have created a couple of things to help you. Two of them being there, we talked about the blog series before. But there's an article, which that first sublink there, the information sources, an example of places to look. I'll come back to that a bit later, but that's another great little article that I personally wrote, so I know it's great, that can help you find a bunch of resources. It's an article that takes you to other articles and other places to find information. I might drop into that when we get to the bottom of the hour. In the Pipes, if you haven't heard of that, that's our technical support blog. We tend to post in there valuable tips and tricks and news to try and keep you abreast of things that are happening or issues we're seeing come up on a regular basis, to try and share that information out there. And if you're on LinkedIn, you'll often see me refer to that in my posts as well. Now, we're not the only training providers out there. Indeed, there's quite a lot. Hopefully, we're only referring to the authorized ones for quality, but one of the ones we often find ourselves referring to articles for is the PDO team, which is Plant Design from the Outside. Which is a part of the AutoCAD Inc. team, do some great articles, and I'm a big believer in credit where credit's due. So when I find there's one of those articles, I can't think which one right now. I think it's the sharing of tool palettes or something like that. When they create great articles, we share them directly, and we do recommend going and have a look at their content. What they've got is quite good. Some of it's a bit old, but most of it's still very relevant. And again, we've got the Applied Software's Guide to Plant 3D and the CAD Line community as well, all excellent resources. And these are all hyperlinks. If you download the PDF, you click on them and you can go straight to it. Oh gosh, yes, Autodesk University Online. Now, I've been to this for the last 5 years, trying to present content, and we talked about this in October. We would talk about Autodesk University from Autodesk University in November, and we touched on it again in December, just with as a retrospective. And this is what we showed in December as well. If you are looking for content, this is an amazing source of free content, hour and a half lessons that have not only video content in most cases, but presentations. Classic example there, that second one. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's a presentation there. You can see 46 people have looked at. There's a handout with 62 people have downloaded, and a video as well. You won't get that much content from most partners or providers in training, simply because you're getting the presentation and the handouts as well as the recordings. A lot of great content there. Even the older ones, like that 2013 one, some of it is still spot on and still applies to today. Just beware that maybe the pictures will be a bit out of date, all right? So that's some great things there. And you can see there's 133 Plant 3D specific content classes in the database. From last year specifically, we had, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 classes at AU. Now, I know it's not a lot. There's a lot of other content. There's over 700 classes that happen. So we've only got 1/100th of that, but still, that's some good content there. A couple of them are mine. Top one there being the Plant Community Meetup. They are all online now. So each one of those has a website, a page, or an article that you can find, and they all have, I think, a presentation or a handout. Now, all of them are also recorded, and you can access them, except for that one that has that not recorded icon on it. And that had a presentation and a handout, I think, and was more of a conversation, so I don't think you've missed out on a great deal there anyway. But like I said, there's content there. If you didn't get to go to any of them, make some time in your calendar, book it in, and watch a couple of those just to keep your skill up. And as I said, I strongly recommend the virtual community from November if you didn't make it. So one of the things that we talk about on a regular basis, or as we help people with, is how to best search. We spend a lot of our lives searching online as technical specialists and searching through the Autodesk Knowledge Network and all sorts of places. And it becomes a bit of a life skill in learning how to search. Now, Google is an amazing search engine, and it's to try and compete with that level of design and intelligence in things like, or even the Autodesk Knowledge Network search function can be difficult. So there's a few tips and tricks, and there's plenty of articles out there on best ways to use Google search, but even when we're looking for things in Autodesk Knowledge Network, one of the tricks is to use the advanced search functions, or to narrow down your searches for what you're after. Now, the page here is showing the actual advanced search window. Whether or not you know it, if you're in a standard Google search, you can do something like the site or domain, follow that by a colon, and then put your search words. That will also search only that site. And there's a whole bunch of ways like quotation marks and all sorts of things to help define and control the search to be more exact in what you're after. Not to mention the exact wording itself anyway. Using the correct wording, or at least is a big part of learning how to do that. A simple Google search on how to do Google searches will bring you some really interesting articles on that, which we haven't added here, but there is that advanced Google search hyperlink as well. So talking about what I said before about putting the colons in, if you want to look at a specific site, you can look at site colon and the website, and if you've got the website in and then put the colon in, I think it automatically puts the prefix in for you. Will only then search on that particular site, as I said. So this is searching for Plant 3D specs, but only within the AutoDeskKnowledge.com, and that's all you're seeing in your search criteria. So that can be really helpful if that's what you want to do. Okay, I said no questions from last month from our region, but we did in December, and I'll click on this and go over there for you. I think that will change the view. No, it's not, so I'll have to change my sharing. Why is it not letting me change what I'm sharing? All right, we'll come back to that. Something going wrong with GoTo there. It's getting very confused. That's all right. We'll go back to my presentation. All right, so if you go to the resources page for the virtual meetups, we had a lot of answers come from the November one. So they are now available in the meetup, and you can see from December, we've got the presentations and the recordings for each of the 3 sessions uploaded. They're all hyperlinks, so you can go to them and easily find what you're after, rather than going through and having to search. And that is relatively easy to get to. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A panel, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So we are now officially in the open discussion Q&A bit. I'm going to change my share while we're waiting, and you might even be able to see my face there. which is something I was trying to do before. Anyway, so this is now the Q&A section, and if you've got any, if you put it in the questions, raise your hand, and I can certainly unmute you. I don't see any raised hands, and so I can either keep talking or you can go on for a minute. I did ask if you could put what when you had last training in to the chat or the Q&A, so I could get a sort of a feel to see when you were last seen training. That would be interesting. Maybe generate some chat there. Not much going on. All right. Also, while we're waiting, in the back of the presentation, we do have, when you download it, the PDF, we do have a lot of references and links, which is there each time. And I often leave a bunch of pages on from previous presentations for reference as well. So if you get those, you get a bit of extra content. We can talk about the resources page there, other virtual meetups, so that we're not the only ones doing this. There's quite a few. There's a BIM manager one on the first Tuesdays. There's the architects on the second Tuesday of the month. The third Tuesday is the civil engineers, and electrical engineers on the third Thursday. And I think the electrical people run 2 sessions as well. So there's a lot of content there. Feel free to share these with other people and share alike. Like it's best to get this information out there happening each month. So we mentioned the video blog series, our little meetup there. You get to see all our wonderful faces there across each of the time zones. Don't forget to register. And all these are in the back of the presentation. But if I go back over to here, I was looking at the resources store and scrolling down, we've got the registrations here. You click on here and go to registrations. That opens a new page. And I'm just going to check that you're all seeing that. It's a bit laggy, I can see. Going to close that. And if you scroll down to the America session, the European session, or the APAC one, you can see that we've got February, March, and April already up. And shortly after this is finished, this December session will change to January's. How long that system takes to update. Click select all, you can see it highlights all those for you, and clicking register, you'll get those registrations in your email address. You'll be registered for them. And if you scroll down further, you can see we've published all the topics for this year. Now, these are our proposed topics. If something happens, we can't deliver them, then we may skip them. That is very unusual, though. And if there's other things you want to discuss, we will absolutely be doing that. So I did put a post in the forum that look for topics. I have not closed it, but I've certainly marked it as solved. But if you've got anything, feel free to post it in the forums to us, particularly commenting us so we know you're talking to us, or send us an email or something like that. Scrolling down, if you're an enterprise customer and you're looking for things prior to June 2019, there is a link here to the old page. It does require a sign-in. 1 second. I left the agenda from last year there for a reference, and that will stay there and just keep moving down. So you get December sessions, again, the presentation of the recordings. Now, I'm not seeing any questions still or any chat, so I'll continue on just for a moment. If we don't have any more, we might close a bit early. We are extending these sessions out to an hour this year for the purpose. So what we want to do is do tips and tricks for the first 15, 20 minutes, and then go into Q&A as normal. But we want the extra time to be able to run through live demos, work within the product, and do anything like that. So I've got Plant 3D 2020 open there, ready to do any demonstrations that you might want. Going back to here, what I wanted to show you was what things we have. I've got this article that we talked about, the Plant 3D information sources and an example of places to look. Probably could have used a better name, but this is an article I wrote. I wrote this because I used to share this a lot. It was a collection I started creating, and I ended up sharing it a lot with our customers. So I decided I'd put it up as an article and make it available to everybody, and we keep it up to date when things are missing. it's not something that needs to be updated on a regular basis because it is examples of places. For example, we talk about Autodesk University, the Enterprise Hub, which is now their Customer Success Learning Hub, so I probably should update that. Autodesk Knowledge Network, and we come down here. I do want to draw your attention to a couple of things. So this one here, Plant 3D Vault User Workflows Information Collection. So these collections, I don't know if you've seen them, they're collections of articles on Autodesk Knowledge Network. There's also one for administrators for Vault projects and a collaboration project one as well. So this is the collaboration with teams. And when collaboration with BIM 360 comes out, we'll probably look at, well, I shouldn't say probably, we are going to update either it or create a new one way or the other. And if you're looking at trying to understand what collaboration for Plant is, you get a couple of classes here from Quinton, one of our technical specialists on that particular topic, and they're quite interesting, all right? So there are hyperlinks to those. If you click on these hyperlinks, I've already opened it here, what you get is a Plant 3D collaboration collection. This is the user workflows. I opened this one too because it's linked to a class I did in 2017, and there's a bunch of information here. These are all articles related or to be useful for users using vaulted projects. Not around basic use of Plant 3D, but Plant 3D with Vault. So there's an event registration which takes you to the class on it, some proxy server things, collaboration project design articles. But when we go through, there is a lot of articles in there around, so this is the collaboration one, shows you all that. If I click over to the Vault one, just clicking on that takes me over there. This is a particularly interesting one because it's linked to my class, which has a bunch of content in it. And what you'll see here is, Plant User Task 1, Vault, and the problem is we can't order these in here. So they're not necessarily in the best order, but this one here, 0.1 is, and the 0.2 and 0.3 is the place to start. And users can go in here and learn all about Plant and Vault from a user's perspective and in an online training process. So there's a written section, there's a video, and there's also often an attachment, not this particular one. And bottom of this one has all the links to the other articles. So these are all in the collection. So collections are collections of articles related to a particular topic. So I thought I'd share that with you. That makes that fairly clear. They're definitely worth looking into. And again, they're all coming from that previous article, which I've turned off. And like I said, if you're looking for something more, we have the Customer Success Learning Center. This is going through an evolution at the moment. You can see here you've got the meetups. We've got articles that are being written and added videos, which include the meetup recordings and success stories as well. These are particularly interesting. I know it sounds like a sales pitch, and it probably is a bit, but what the real value of these is to our customers is having a look at what other people are doing. These are success stories, not from us, but our success of our customers. And they can be a good example of where you may be missing out on something. This particular Bundaberg Bridge one is around the collaboration workflows through BIM 360 and the automation of workflows, and saves them a significant amount of work when I want to say minor error, maybe I shouldn't say that, when something wasn't quite right. And there's the whole reason we put these out there is you guys are already using our tools, but we want to make sure that you're getting the best value out of them. If you can save 55,000 hours, same as Sweco did, then that is just wonderful. That's what we want to see. Okay, so it's worth having a look and see if there's somebody who's maybe doing something like you that you can leverage their experience and maybe improve it as well. Maybe learn something from. Just checking, I don't see any questions. I'm not seeing any chats. So what I might do is, rather than keep waffling on and jabbering away what we're going, I can talk all day on these topics if need be. I'll close all these down and I'll go back to my presentation, not Plant, back to presentation. And just want to say, look, for those who came, thank you very much for coming. It is an absolute pleasure to see you in the virtual meetup, and I love seeing people arrive. And thank you very much. If you haven't registered, please go to the website and register. The recordings will be up in the next couple of days. Presentations around the same time in the resources store. If you have any questions, reach out please through Log a Case, drop them in the forums. You can always comment to the people who are doing the presentations and get involved in the conversation. Best way to learn, I always say, is everyone says, you learn from your mistakes. I prefer to learn from other people's mistakes. That way I haven't got to suffer through them, but hopefully we all learn in the same process. So thank you again. Happy New Year. Hope you had a wonderful end of year, got a good break and champing at the bit for the new year. And I will see you in February, I hope. Thank you again. I'll end the series now. Just double checking there's no questions and no chats. All right. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.